Hello and welcome to this session. This is Professor Farhat. In this session, we'll keep working with the SOC report. In the prior session, we looked at the description in a SOC report, and we looked at a description for SOC 1, SOC 2, and we looked at cybersecurity risk management examination. In this session, we're going to be looking at another topic within the report, and those are the assertions of management or management assertions. What they will do is, assertion is a claim. Management makes a claim. And we'll be discussing in this session what claims do management make. They have to make a claim, because when we need to issue an opinion, when the auditors issue an opinion, they issue an opinion about that assertion. So we need to know what assertion the company is making, the service organization is making. Therefore, the service auditor can issue an opinion. So let's go ahead to start to discuss management's assertion. Management assertion in a SOC engagement, whether it's a SOC 1 or a SOC 2. Again, SOC 1 is about internal control over financial reporting. SOC 2 dealing with trust service criterias. The auditor requests a formal statement. Notice we need you to put this in writing from the organization management. This statement is known as management assertion, and it's a critical part of the audit. What if management reviews? We will deal with the situation at the end of this recording. So management assertions revolve around three areas: description of the controls, suitability of the control design, and operating effectiveness of controls. So we need to know whether the description, the suitability of the control design, or the operating effectiveness are properly stated. For example, for the description, are they properly implemented for the control suitability, and whether are properly working operating effectiveness of controls. So those are basically the three assertions. They don't have to be all in one, made all at once. For example, description of controls and suitability of control, they go into together, and operating effectiveness, usually that's a type 2. It's in a different assertion. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at the description, suitability of control, and operating effectiveness for each SOC engagement separately. SOC 1, so description, we're going to look at SOC 1, SOC 2. Suitability of control, same thing. What does that mean for SOC 1? What does that mean for SOC 2? And operating effectiveness of control, that's a type 2. We'll look at that as well. Before we proceed any further, I have a public announcement about my company, farhatlectures.com.
Farhat Accounting Lectures is a supplemental educational tool that's going to help you with your CPA exam preparation as well as your accounting courses. My CPA material is aligned with your CPA review course such as Becker, Roger, Wiley, Gleam, Miles. My accounting courses are aligned with your accounting courses, broken down by chapter and topics. My resources consist of lectures, multiple choice questions, true-false questions, as well as exercises. Go ahead, start your free trial today.
For a SOC 1 engagement, when it comes to description, the assertion made by management focuses on the accuracy and completeness of the description of their system, and specifically internal control over financial reporting. That's SOC 1. The assertion must confirm that the description accurately represent the system as it was actually designed and implemented. So this is what we're looking at. We're looking at the system itself. Does it describe it accurately, represent the system accurately? And the description, the SOC 1 engagement, if it's a type 1, it's for a specific date. If it's a type 2, it's over a period of time. Remember, we can have a SOC 1 type 1 or SOC 1 type 2. If it's a type 2, it's for a period of time, because we want to make sure the description is working properly for a period of time, versus a type 1 as a point in time. The description is fair, not working. Is fair, is accurate at that point, or is it fair and accurate over a period of time? And this is to make sure that the stakeholders can trust that the system is described accurately and operates as intended, especially in the context where the system impacts financial reporting, which is in this context because we're looking at internal control over financial reporting. So that's the purpose of the report, to make sure that the system is described accurately. It means the description reflect what's actually happening. This is in a SOC 1 engagement. In a SOC 2 engagement, when it comes to description, well, what's going to happen is it plays a similar role, but the focus is on certain criteria. What are those criteria? You guessed it, the trust services criteria. The description must present the system not just as it was designed and implemented, but also in accordance with the predefined description criteria. So as far as SOC 1, this must be accurate. Again, for type 1 as a specific date, or throughout a period if we're looking at a type 2 report, and you should know this. So the emphasis here is to make sure that the system adheres to the trust services criteria set out, which related to security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, and privacy of the information processed by the system. Simply put, in SOC 2 description, we want to make sure that the system adheres to the trust service criteria. When it's described, it's adhering to those. What are the trust service criteria? Security 1, availability 2, processing integrity 3, confidentiality 4, and privacy 5. You need to know this inside out. So this is when it comes to SOC 2. Now again, for SOC 2, we could have a type 1 report that the way the system is described is fair for at that point in time, or we could have it as a type 2 report where the system is described and that description works for a period of time if it's a type 2 report. Moving from the first to the second assertion, which is description is 1, suitability of the control design. And we're going to look at a SOC 1 engagement. In a SOC 1 report, again, internal control over financial reporting, management assert that the control described are designed effectively to meet the specific control objective. Now, the first assertion we said we looked at the description. Here we're looking at the design to make sure that the design is suitable to achieve what? The control objectives. So on paper, is it suitable? These objectives are related to financial reporting processes for SOC 1. And if it's a type 1, the assertion confirmed that the control were suitably designed to achieve the intended control as a specific date. Always type 1 as a specific date. Well, this is an easy way to remember. Type 1, it means 1 day as a specific date. Type 2, the assertion here extends to confirm that the control were suitably designed and operated effectively to meet the control objective throughout a period of time, specific period of time. That's the difference between type 1 and type 2. It's for a period of time. This is SOC 1 engagement. SOC 2 engagement, suitability of design, basically the same thing, but we shift the focus to trust services criteria. Same concept. Type 1, management assert that the controls in place were designed effectively to provide reasonable assurance that the service organization commitment and system requirement were met based on the applicable trust service criteria. The 5-1 that we mentioned earlier for a specific date if it's a type 1, SOC 2 type 1. SOC 2 type 2, this assertion goes further to state that these controls were not only designed but also operated effectively to achieve these criteria for a period of time. For type 2 is a period of time, and we're finding out whether it's working for a period of time. Because think about it. If a system is working for 1 day, that doesn't give us a lot of assurance. So if we want to test something, we want to test it, make sure it's working for a period of time. Now the description, the suitability of the control, if we're looking at a type 1, well, we're looking at 1 point in time. But if we want to see if it's working properly, if something is working properly, we want to take a look at a period of time. I hope this makes sense. So we looked at the description for SOC 1, suitability of design for both SOC 1 and SOC 2, type 1 and type 2. Now let's discuss the third assertion, which is whether the controls are operating effectively. Now, whether we are dealing with a SOC 1 or a SOC 2. Once we look at a type 2 report, because it's dealing with the control effectiveness, whether the control are operating effectively, whether we are dealing with a SOC 1 or a SOC 2, this assertion by management not only covered the design of the control, but also the effective operation over a specific period. So when it comes to operating effectiveness of the control, or whether the controls are operating effectively, we are looking at a type 2 report, whether it's a SOC 1 or a SOC 2. We're looking at a type 2 report. This is the key element of type 2 reports that distinguish them from type 1, because type 2 deals what? With operating effectiveness. Type 1 report, which focus solely on the design of the control at a single point in time. So when we're looking at SOC 1 type 2, again, SOC 1 is internal control over financial reporting. Okay, I know I keep repeating this, but that's important. If we're looking at type 2, we want to know whether the description, the suitability, and the operating effectiveness are working for a period of time. For a SOC 1 Type 2 report, the management assertions include the control related to the control objective outline and the system description were not only suitably designed, but also operated effectively throughout a period. So it's not only they have the proper description, they are suitably designed, but they are also effective. So here what we have to do in a Type 2, to come to this conclusion, we have to do some testing. We have to test this. We have to test. The objective here, the purpose of these control is to achieve the control objective, which is in a SOC 1 typically tied to financial reporting, ensuring the reliability of financial data processed by the service organization. Because again, SOC 1 deals with internal control. But now we want to know whether the internal control are actually, the internal control over financial reporting are actually working properly. Not only the description is correct and accurate, not only the control is suitably designed, it looks like it can achieve it, we're going to test it. Is it operating effectively? Now when it comes to SOC 2 Type 2, SOC 2 deals with trust services criteria. Now we're not only interested in the description and the suitability of the design, same thing. We want to make sure that those TSCs are operated effectively over a period of time. So the control described in the system documentation operated effectively over a specified period. How do I know this? I have to test. And that's why Type 2, you have to do some testing. Okay, so the objective for SOC 2 Type 2, these controls provide reasonable assurance that the service organization commitments and system requirements were met according to the applicable trust services criteria, which cover aspects such as security, availability, processing, integrity, confidentiality, and privacy. Hold on a second, you're repeating yourself. Yes, I might be repeating myself, but that's important. That's part of your studying. So you want to make sure SOC 2 TSCs, Type 2, working effectively. SOC 1, internal control or financial reporting. Type 2, is it working effectively? Type 2 is for a period of time. Type 1 is for a point in time. You want to know these inside out. Now I'm going to move a step further and go into SOC 3. Now before I move into SOC 3, SOC 3 is a SOC 2 type of report. And the reason I did not mention it earlier, because SOC 3 is a SOC 2 type of report. Slightly different, but covering the same thing. The intended purpose and the audience are different, but basically it's going to tell us the same thing. So let's look at a SOC 3 engagement. SOC 3 engagement, it's a form of SOC 2 Type 2. In SOC 3 engagement, management assertion plays a crucial role in confirming the effectiveness of the system internal control over a specified period. Basically the same definition as SOC 2. What assertions? Management asserts that the control within the system were effective throughout the designated period. Basically this is what we said here. And these controls ensured that the service organization commitment and system requirements are met. Same thing as SOC 2 Type 2. That's all we're saying. Same thing as SOC 2 Type 2. So what's the difference? Well, we're going to see what the difference is between SOC 2 and SOC 3. We discussed it way earlier in the course, but we're going to review it here. So SOC 3, we should have a space here. What we're doing is we're adhering to the trust service criteria, which is SOC 2 Type 2. The effectiveness of these controls is measured against specific trust criteria, which cover aspects like security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, and privacy. Again, you don't have to do all 5. 1 or more will be good. The assertions include a clear description of the boundaries of the system. We're going to have a description defining what's covered by the audit. Now, it's also described the service organization principal service commitment and system requirement. Basically, what we talked about in the prior session about system description, outlining the key functionalities and responsibility of the service organization. So simply put, this is the description basically of a SOC 2 as well. But this is a review because we looked at SOC 2. So purpose of SOC 3 report. What's the purpose of a SOC 3 report? It's designed for a broader audience compared to SOC 2 specifically, SOC 1 or SOC 2, but it's specifically to SOC 2 because it's more like SOC 2. So when we prepare a SOC 2, SOC 2 is about trust service criteria. If it's a SOC 2, so what's the difference between SOC 2 and SOC 3? If it's a SOC 2 report. SOC 2, the intended audience are the user entity. And who's user the entity? The company that's using the services from the service organization, the auditor of user entity. And who's the user entity? I always give this example. My company is Farhat Lecture. I'm the user entity. I'm using an IT company to handle my IT desk or my IT services. So this is the service company, service org. Now, the service org will have an auditor called the service auditor. When they issue a SOC 2 report, this report is intended to the user entity, which is I am the user entity. I'm in the online education. And it's also intended to my auditor. I have my own auditor, the auditor of the user company. They will send a report, and they will send a report to the service organization as well, because obviously they paid for it. So notice SOC 2 is limited to those three groups, and you need to know this. When it comes to SOC 3 is not limited. SOC 3 is intended for everyone. Matter of fact, some companies, when they have SOC 3, they usually publish it on their website. Now, why would they do that? Why would the company publish a SOC 3 report on their website without people asking? It's because they want to tell you when it comes to security, confidentiality, privacy, processing integrity, we take your information seriously. Because it's basically, this is part of not marketing, but part to kind of install trust in the users. Look, we have a SOC 3 report. We had an auditor that audited our financial statement, audited our trust services criteria, audited our system according to the trust services criteria, which is security, confidentiality, processing integrity, so on and so forth, and gave us good grade, basically. Okay, they provide a high-level overview of the service organization control without detailed and technical information found in SOC 2. So why would they do that in SOC 2? Because SOC 2 is more technical. It's going for people who know what they're talking about, or they need to know what the report includes. SOC 3, more suitable for the general distribution. And once we look at the report later, you're going to see that SOC 2, you cannot distribute it. You have to kind of mention that it has to have a limited use. Where proof of effective control is necessary, but detailed information is not required. So this is in SOC 3. You just show them that it's good, but you don't have to show them the technical. In SOC 2, because you're sending it to the auditor, you're sending it to the user entity, they want to know details. SOC 3, you don't know the details, and you can send it, you can publish it and send it to the whole world, to anyone can see it. Now, earlier we asked the questions, what if the auditor, what if the company, service company, refused to give you a formal written assertions? Well, if management fails to provide the written assertion, the service auditor is expected to withdraw from the engagement. And this action is contingent on whether such withdrawal is permissible under the applicable laws and regulations. Sometimes you cannot, because by law, this company needs this engagement, so you cannot. If the auditor can legally withdraw, this is the preferred course of action. Now, what if you cannot withdraw? What can you do? Well, if laws and regulation prevent the auditor from leaving, say, I'm not interested if you don't give me a formal written assertion, the auditor must then take a different approach by disclaiming an opinion. And we talked about opinion earlier. What does disclaiming an opinion means? It means keep your mouth shut. What does that mean? It means you will not provide any assurance or an opinion. You would state in your report, I'm sorry, I could not collect enough evidence to have an opinion. And that's pretty normal. You might have to do that for financial statements. You might have to do that for a SOC 1 or a SOC 2, because you cannot issue an opinion without having sufficient appropriate evidence. So you could not give an opinion regarding the accuracy and the completeness of the description. Just, I don't have enough information, or the suitability of the design. That's usually not a problem, those two. Usually. But for 3, the operating effectiveness, it could be a problem, because to test the operating effectiveness, you need evidence. It could be done on all 3. You could have a disclaimer for type 1. Those are type 1. But usually, it's hard not to be able to collect evidence for a type 1 engagement, because all what you need is the description and the determine the suitability of the design of the controls. But for type 2, you need evidence. Why? Because you are issuing an opinion about the effectiveness of something. You don't issue an opinion lightly. You want them to show proof. Let's take a look at this multiple choice question from farhatlectures.com. A cloud storage provider undergoes a SOC 2 Type 2 audit. So they're looking at the operating effectiveness of the trust services criteria. What is the primary purpose of the management assertion in this context? I already told you. What's the primary assertion? Without even reading the answers, you should know. To verify the financial accuracy of the transaction processing. Now, this is more like a traditional audit, and even traditional audit, you don't look at the financial accuracy, but maybe this is like a, I would say, a forensic audit, so or fraud. A is out. To demonstrate the operational effectiveness of security control over a specified period. To demonstrate the operational effectiveness of security controls, yes, over a specified period. That's also a yes. So type 2, SOC 2 type 2, remember type 2 goes over a period of time, over a specified period. I will keep A for now. To ensure the design of the control is suitable for a single point in time. This is a type 1. SOC 2 type 1, out. To confirm the system's compliance with the international data handling law. That could be part of it, but this is a compliance audit, so D is out. We're looking at our internal control, whether they are operating effectively, specifically not control, trust services criteria's security controls over a specified period. So B is the correct answer. What should you do now? You want to go to Farhat Lectures, look at additional MCQs, additional resources, especially if you're studying for your Information Systems and Controls exam. Invest in yourself. Farhat Lectures is always here to help, and stay safe.